Let's be real. In 2025, everyone's talking about clipping. You've probably seen countless creators talk about how clipping changed everything for their brands. And chances are you've probably been hit with a lot of marketing and targeting from platforms like WAP, pushing their different content rewards programs. And it's really never been as popular as it is now. By the looks of it, it sounds efficient, it sounds scalable. And right now it seems like the biggest go-to growth lever to pull for creators and brands out there right now. But what I've noticed after working with quite a few brands, creators, and coaches that are doing some form or another of coaching is that a lot of people simply don't understand what clipping really means and the different avenues you can go down. And so when it comes to the clipping that you've probably heard of and thought about doing, that's clipping that involves organizing a community and footage and handing all of this over to someone that you've never met or never talked to. And basically trusting them to represent your voice, your brand, your messaging, and everything like that in the videos they create. And let's be honest, that's not a small ask. But don't be discouraged, because that doesn't mean that clipping doesn't work. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the different avenues that you can go down depending on what type of brand and what type of business you're representing in your marketing, so that you can know what's specifically going to work for you and what most likely won't work for you. And avoiding the trap of thinking that clipping alone is an entire content strategy. Because the honest truth is, clipping is leverage, but only if the strategy behind it is really dialed in. So if you're a business owner or creator looking for that one video about how to actually use clipping to promote their brand and to scale their business rather than learn how to become a clipper, this video is just for you. Let's break it down. And so we're going to cover everything on the topic of how smart brands are using clipping to dominate short form content distribution in 2025. Here's an example of someone you might have seen that's absolutely crushing it with the popular type of clipping, the very popular approach known as content rewards via WAP, that's doing really, really well. And so I'm going to cover this avenue as well as a different avenue, because guys, before I get into this nitty gritty detail, let's be honest, clipping and short form content distribution has been around for years and years, right? It's not a new topic. It's just recently really resurfaced and gotten very popular with WAP's rollout of content rewards. But that doesn't mean that this is the best and only path that you have to go down, because in a lot of cases, it actually doesn't even make sense to do this. And so for someone like Rob, though, obviously it really does make sense and he's crushing it. Here's some examples of, him paying out over $86,000 to clippers. Here's an example of what a clipping account looks like, most likely managed by his team, which we'll get into in a little bit, and then other clipping accounts that are most likely managed by sole clippers that he has no idea who these people are. Now let's just jump straight into what makes sense for you to do with your brand and with your marketing when it comes to trying to put out mass amounts of short form content and quote unquote start clipping with your brand. And so the thing about this is that there's two routes, right? There's the route that's always been around and still works to this day, which is clipping via an in-house team, right? This is having a dedicated team to only your content, to only your personal brand, only focusing on your own socials. And then there's clipping via content rewards on WAP, which is the first thing I'll get into because it's the very, very popular way to go about clipping today. And so to get straight into it, I'm going to cover the pros and the cons of both. First off, with clipping via content rewards on WAP, this is fully outsourced, right? This is all hosted and organized on WAP. And the success of this really comes down to two things from what I've seen building multiple clipping campaigns for clients. The two factors of success are really how you organize your community in the first place to give the creative direction and guidelines for what your expectations are. And then number two is your footage. You need to have a lot of footage that's actually going to be enough resources that these clippers and editors can use to create new, unique, and viral short form content. But getting back into this, it is fully outsourced, right? Your clippers do the work. You just provide all the footage and the guidelines. It's great for people who already have a lot of content backlog, right? A lot to work with here. If you're someone that doesn't have a lot of footage for your brand, you don't have a lot of footage of yourself, this most likely really isn't going to work because it's not going to give them enough to work with. And also, like I was saying, with setting up that community and the guidelines and the course and everything within WAP, you need to set clear creative direction, right? An actual ROI, which at the end of the day is all we're shooting for here, right? That success really comes down to how you set expectations within this community with your clippers, right? You need to explain to them how to structure a video, what the CTA requirements are to get approved, and things of that nature. Now, second, this is going to be low upfront cost. This is typically pay per performance or incentive based. This is what you've seen and known as the RPMs. It is the $1 per 1,000 views, all the way up to, I've seen people doing $5 per 1,000 views. And so when it comes to paying out the clippers for their videos, it is fully going to be on RPM. Your only other cost is going to be if you go with someone to help you set up this community, because that is the other half of success with content rewards. To come back to the pros here, this also allows you to be seen in more places at once, right? On multiple different accounts, because these clippers are making their own socials and managing these accounts themselves. Now, a last little note to leave you with on the pro side of things is that this works really, really well for info businesses and personal brands. And the reason is very, very simple. It's because these brands are all about that one person, right? These people most likely have lots and lots of content about themselves, from live streams, from long form videos, and people want to see these videos and people resonate and like these influencers and creators simply because of their personality and who they are. And so it's not so much clip dependent on what exactly is going on. It's more so about the fact that this creator and this person is liked and very popular, and their clips are going to get pushed regardless of how insane the editing is or complex the editing is, because this person is just simply an icon. This is also really going to incentivize clippers when they see that they're clipping for someone that goes viral time and time again, just because of simply who they are. Now, when it comes to the cons of clipping via content rewards, you're going to have less control, right? Clippers get to choose what to post and how it's edited at the end of the day, right? They're not your in-house team. You're not able to tell them the different revisions to do with every single video. You're also going to have creative inconsistency if you don't set clear standards, right? This is why it's really, really important to set up that community and set up the mandatory modules that they have to go through in the first place to set those clear expectations so that they actually reach those standards, the videos are good, and so that on both sides, they're happy, their videos get approved, and they get paid out. Another thing is that traffic goes to the Clippers accounts, not yours, right? So as we talked about, since they're setting up and managing their own accounts, the traffic isn't going straight back to your socials. So if you want to solely focus on your own socials and really build up a strong audience there, and you're still in that phase, it really makes more sense to focus on that because you're not building an audience for your current socials. You're having Clippers create their own accounts. Now, again, this doesn't grow your audience or brand asset long-term. That ties in with this other one. And from what I've seen, it's not very ideal for businesses selling physical products, agencies, or non-personal brands. And the reason is because if you're running any sort of business where the face of the business and the face of the brand is not front and center, this is going to make it very, very hard for people on social media to scroll past this and, number one, understand what's going on, and number two, actually deeply resonate, right? People's attention spans are going to be very low when it comes to short form content, and they don't quickly resonate with the video. They're likely to scroll very, very quick. Another aspect is that if your business is in one of these baskets of industries, it's very reliant on your product specifically. And Clippers aren't going to fully understand how to visualize and represent that in the best way possible. They're not fully going to know the best features of your product or your brand voice or anything important like that. And lastly, it's going to need active engagement. One of the biggest misconceptions I see of people wanting to start content rewards clipping, paid by performance on RPMs, is that they think this is a fully run on autopilot and don't have any cost at all type of operation, when it's really not. Because when it comes to management, there's clip review, there's community direction, there's oversight, there's a lot that goes into that side. And then of course, there's a lot of setting up that has to go into campaigns like this. For example, with Rob the Bank, you have to imagine how much preparation went into setting up this community the right way so that they had all the right guidelines, so that they had all the right direction to give Clippers to achieve such a result as they did, right? And so you can imagine the amount of people that had to be involved with creating this community and managing it on a monthly basis, and the upfront cost that also probably came with that. Now, hopping over to clipping via an in-house dedicated team. In other words, this is having a short-form content team manage all of your content in-house. When it comes to the pros, right here we have full control, right? This is you deciding the editing style, most likely working with the head of that team to decide what that is, what the narrative is, and what the overall goals are, and working a lot more closely with this team, right? Also, content is posted on your platforms, right? This is building that long-term brand equity that you're probably looking for. It's a lot more strategy driven. That means that clips are going to be a bigger part of the funnel. It's not just for reach. It's not going on random accounts. It's easier to align the messaging and visuals with your brand voice when you're working with an actual dedicated team, and has a bit more intent on what they're actually creating. And the other thing is this works for all business types, right? Info, service, physical product, personal brand, you name it. And lastly, as you probably know, most top creators start with this method, even if they add content rewards later. Going back to the example of Rob the Bank, he had grown his personal brand to very big heights before he even got into clipping, to first verify that it's even going to work, to build that first audience, to become known in the first place before jumping into clipping via content rewards. Now, when it comes to the cons of having an in-house dedicated team, it's probably going to require more time or money upfront to manage and to hire and to vet and make sure that this team you're working with really understands your goals here. It's not free traffic, as we talked about. It's not paid by performance every single video, whereas with content rewards, with going with WAP, you don't pay per video, you only pay if that video performs. Your team is paid regardless of that post performance. And with this, you're also going to need systems in place, SOPs, deadlines, feedback loops, just as you would with over here. But overall, with this, you're going to want to have more control. You probably have more specific goals that you're reaching for and higher expectations with this team. And so you want that organization. And lastly, there can be a slight opportunity cost if you do fall into the basket of being someone very similar to Rob the Bank, right? Growing a personal brand, selling an info product, and being more of an icon. It really would make a lot of sense to look into doing clipping via content rewards if you have a lot of footage, because it can be slower to ramp up compared to the viral potential of content rewards. Because with this, you have so many hits at home base, you have so many posts going out, really infinite amounts depending on how fast and how well you can acquire that talent with clippers and editors. But again, this is not really going to make sense if you're not in one of those business models that I mentioned. And that just about wraps it up. Now you finally understand how clipping via content rewards model works and how it is different from the traditional in-house short form content distribution team hiring model is. And hopefully at this point, you can weigh out which one makes more sense for you and how to go about this whole process to start putting out short form content and reaping the rewards for your brand of getting more reach and growing on social media. Now, if you do run a business and you made it this far in the video and you're still wondering which model works for you or what exactly that roadmap looks like, I'll drop a link in the description down below where you can book a call to speak directly with me one-on-one, where I can audit all of your footage, your entire personal brand, and your acquisition system, everything going on within your business to see which model makes more sense and if you qualify to work one-on-one with my team and I for setting up your clipping campaign via content rewards and WAP, where we build out the entire community as well as source from our team to acquire the right talent of clippers and editors, or see if it makes more sense to have our dedicated team work one-on-one with curating all of your content for short form content distribution. But that wraps up this video. Hope it was valuable. If it was, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.